We wouldn't be here if this was another murder the state was going to deal with. The state deals with hundreds of murders every single day. But this murder is different because the fags are bringing us out here trying to make Matthew Shepard into a poster boy for the gay lifestyle. And we're going to answer it. It's just that simple. You don't like that attribute of God. That perfect attribute of God. Well, we love that attribute of God and we're going to preach it. Because God's hatred is pure. It's a determination. It's a determination that He's going to send some people to hell. That's God's hatred. We're standing here with God's message. We're standing here with God's message. Is homosexual, is being a fag okay? What do you mean it's not for you to judge? If God doesn't hate fags, why does He put them in hell? Do you see the barrenness and sterility of your arguments when set over against some solid gospel truth? Barren and sterile, like your lifestyle. The silly arguments.
Telling us just about the day when you found Matthew.
I responded to the call, and when I got there, at first all I could see was partially someone's feet. So I got out of my vehicle and I ran over. And I seen what appeared to be a young man, 13, 14 years old. He looked so tiny lying on his back. I did the best that I could. The man lying on the ground, Matthew Shepard, he was covered all over in dry blood all over his head. And there was dry blood under him, and he was barely breathing. He was doing the best that he could. I was going to breathe for him, but I couldn't get his mouth open. His mouth would not open for me. He was covered all over, like I said, in dry blood. And the only place where he didn't have any dry blood on him was what appeared to be where he had been crying down his face. His head was distorted, it didn't look normal, like he had a really harsh head wound. He was tied to the fence in what we call a thumbs out or handcuff position, the way we handcuff people. He was tied with a thin white rope that went around the bottom end of the fence, about 4 inches up off the ground. He was tied so tight that I had to use my boot knife to try to slip it in between his wrists in the rope and try to get it in there. And I had to be so careful not to hurt Matthew any further. His shoes were missing. He was bound so tight that, and I was finally able to get the knife in there. Sorry, just excuse me. We rolled Matthew onto his left side, and when we did that, he stopped breathing. So immediately I put him back on his back, and when we did that, that gave us just enough of an adjustment, enough room that I was able to cut him there. And I saw the EMS unit making its way to the location. Once they got there, the ambulance, we put a neck brace on him, put him on the backboard, scooted him out from under the fence, and Rob drove him to Ivanus hospital emergency room. I saw a picture of him. Days later, they showed me a picture of Matthew. I would never have recognized him.
Tell us about what the experience was like for you and your students after Matthew Shepard incident happened.
I must tell you that when I first heard that you were thinking about coming here, when you first called me, I wanted to say, you just kicked me in the stomach. Why are you doing this to me? But then I thought, that's stupid. You're not doing this to me. And more important, I thought about it and decided we've had so much negative closure on this whole thing. And the students really need to talk. When this happened, they started talking about it. And then the media descended and all dialogue stopped. You know, I really love my students because they're free thinkers. And you may not like what they have to say, and you may not like their opinions because they can be very redneck, but they're honest and they're truthful. So there's an excitement here. There's a dynamic here with my students that I never had when I was in the Midwest or in North Dakota, because there was so much puritanism there that dictated how people looked at the world that a lot of times they didn't have an opinion. You couldn't get them to express an opinion. And quite honestly, I'd rather have an opinion that I don't like and have a dynamic in education. There's a student I think you should talk to. His name is Jedediah Schultz.
So you found Matthew that morning. Could you tell us what that experience was like? Let's walk us through it.
Well, I left with my bicycle at about 5 p.m. on Wednesday from my dorm. I kind of wanted to go for a ride. So I went up to Cactus Canyon, and I'm not super familiar with the area. So on my way back down, I didn't really know where I was going. I was just kind of picking the way to go. Which now, when I think about it, it makes me feel like God wanted me to find him, because there was no way I would have that way. So I'm in some deep ass sand, and I wanted to turn around, but I just kept going. And I went along, and there was this rock, and I drilled it, and I went over the handlebars and ended up on the ground. So I got up, and I'm dusting myself off, and I'm looking around, and that's when I noticed what was Matt. And he was just lying there by a fence. At first I thought it was a scarecrow. Halloween's around the corner. I thought this was a Halloween gag. I walked my bike up to the fence, and it was a buck-type fence. I got a closer look, and that's when I noticed his hair. And when I noticed his hair, that was a big part of me realizing it was a human being. Was his hair, because I seriously just thought it was a dummy. I even saw his chest moving up and down, and I thought it was a mechanism. I was convinced it was a dummy. I ran. I ran as fast as I could to the nearest house, and I called the police.
So Shadow, do you mind telling us about the last time you saw Matthew?
I was the last person that Matt talked to before he left the fireside.
I was just bullshitting around with my shit when he stopped me. I stopped him actually. And he's like, hey Shadow, da da da. And I was like, what man, are you getting ready to leave? And he's like, yeah man, and this and that. But then I noticed them two guys, and they stood outside. You could see it. They were standing there, you know? And he was looking over to them, and they were looking back at him. And I stood and talked to Matt for like a good 10 minutes. And you see the guys with him, you know? You see him getting like, you see him like worry, you know? Like anxious to live and shit. So when they took off, I seen it. When they took off, it was in a black truck. It was a small truck. And the three of them sat in the front seat, and Matt sat in the middle. And I didn't think nothing of it, you know? I didn't figure them guys was gonna be like that.
They want to teach him a lesson not to come on to straight people?
Okay. No. They stated that Matt approached them, that he came on to them. I absolutely, positively disbelieve and refute that statement 100%. Refute it. I'm going to give you 2 reasons why. 1, character reference. Why would he approach them? Why them? He wasn't approaching anyone else at the bar. They say he's gay. He was a flamin' gay. He'd come on to people like that? Bullshit. He never came on to me. Hello. He'd come on to people like that? I don't believe it. 2, territorialism is the word I'm gonna use for this. And that's a fact. Matt was sitting there. Russell and Aaron were in the pool area. Upon their first interaction, they were in Matt's area. The area that Matt had been seen all night. So who approached who by that?
Could you guys tell us about what happened with Matthew Shepard? How you feel about that? That'd be great.
We went to the candle vigil, and it felt so good to be with people who felt like shit. I kept feeling like I don't deserve to feel this bad, you know? And someone got up there and said, come on guys, let's show the world that Laramie is not this kind of a town. But it is that kind of a town. I mean, if it wasn't this kind of a town, then why did this happen here? I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's a lie. Because it happened here. So how could this not be a town where that sort of thing happens? It's totally like looking at an Escher painting and getting all confused. It's just totally circular logic. Like, how could you even say that? And we have to mourn this, and we have to be sad that we live in a town, a state, a country where shit like this happens. And I'm not gonna step away from that and say, we have to show the world this didn't happen. I mean, these are people trying to distance themselves from this crime when we need to own this crime. I feel everyone needs to own it. Because we're like this. We're like this. We are like this.